ready for my banner now, but again, the funeral service as well as the burial of the late Komla Dumont will be live here on the Joy News channel of Multi TV. It will be from the 21st to the 23rd of February 2014, and a very nice track also there on that very funeral promo there. By Scarlet Grey. Title is Words. Go and look for it. It's a very nice music. For many of the people who visit the hospitals, they always have a difficulty trying to ask the medical professionals questions, because oftentimes they also don't take it lightly when these questions are posed to them. There are also some level of misconceptions between what the relationship is between the medical professional and the patient at the time of treatment, but all these are clarified in the patient's charter. We continue our series of discussions on the patient's charter, and this time we have in the studio Ernest Abuaje. He is a medical superintendent with the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. He's actually not a medical superintendent, but he's with the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. He's a legal person as well, and thanks for speaking to us.
Thanks very much.
Now, basically, when we talk about the patient charter, how crucial is it in ensuring that we have consolidation of the relationship between the patient and then the medical professional?
Well, the patient's charter seeks to basically set out a certain number of rights for the patients, and it comes with some responsibility as well. So the patient's charter is a document that sets a bundle of rights for patients or any client accessing healthcare service from any facility or any health professional or practitioner, and it also places certain responsibilities on the patient itself. So I ordinarily would put it that it recognizes the fact that any of us can be a patient at any time, and therefore sets out to offer some protection to us when we have to access health services and from health facilities, and also place some responsibility on us as patients who are accessing the services of health practitioners or health facilities.
Now, beyond the legal nuances as the tenets of the patient's charter is, how binding is it? Supposing it is flouted, is it grounded in any legal grounds at all?
Okay, we should offer our hearts out to the Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Health. They posted the charter first. They came out with the charter over a decade ago, publicized it at length. But last year, in 2012, Parliament gave its statutory backing under the Public Health Act 851/2012, Section 167 and Schedule 6. Sets out, in verbatim, the entire patient charter and makes it mandatory. It says that it shall, apply to every person who interacts with patients or clients in any health facility in the country. So it has statutory backing under Act 851, that's the Public Health Act of 2012.
And if it's flouted?
It's a statute, so it's enforceable.
And
it's an act of Parliament.
Do you agree that there's some level of perhaps poor education on the subject? Now, as a result of that, many patients don't know about it and usually don't follow it to the letter?
Yeah, I would say yes. It's two-way. One, yes, the education may not be enough, so many patients don't pursue it. The other part is also that, generally as a people, we seem to have an interest on what we choose to litigate over. Sometimes I say jokingly that we would want to litigate over a small piece of land as against litigate to establish the cause of injury or harm to a person who visits a hospital. We prefer to litigate on certain things and not to litigate on others. We are coming from a social setting where our health system, our healthcare providers have been seen in a certain light. So it's difficult to say these doctors or my sister, these pharmacists give us these medicines and seeking to take the person to court. It's not something that has been with us vis-a-vis litigating over a small portion of land.
But would you advise?
Drag it at length. It's not so much just the litigation, but in seeking to enforce the rights, we help to improve the system. We help to make it safer for all of us. We help the system to correct itself. We help the system to review its processes and its way of doing things in our own interest. Because I always say that, I mean, from even the healthcare providers through all of us, any of us can be a patient at any time. Once you're sick, you're a patient. And it doesn't matter who you are. So anybody can be a patient.
I haven't been within the medical fraternity for a number of years now. Do you think that there's that awareness level among medical practitioners, whether they're pharmacists or nurses or medical doctors, and not necessarily on the existence, about why it is important or critical for them to always make sure they enforce the tenets?
Well, it is there. You see, the whole gamut of the patient's charter is saying that the person we are managing, the person we are providing the service for, whether doctor, pharmacist, nurse, radiologist, biomedical scientist, the person, the client that we are serving is a human being, and therefore is entitled to everything that we are entitled to as people. And I said that any of us could pass for patients at any time. So the awareness is there. And I believe that it's a latent part of the training, whether for a doctor, a pharmacist, a nurse. It's a latent part of the training that you are taught to know that you are managing or providing service to a human being, and therefore all the privileges and the rights that come in taking care of a human being, or which you would prefer to be given to you if you are a patient, because we also become patients. But in saying
that, we have circumstances, actually many or countless circumstances, in which the relationship has not been great at all, especially when a medical professional is dealing with a patient.
Yes, yes. We are coming from a social background where medical practitioners, healthcare providers are deemed to know it all, and therefore, who are you to question a doctor in his consulting room or question a pharmacist about the choice of a medication?
And that's a difficulty.
It's a difficulty because it's as if you enter into the facility, you know nothing, you give a complaint, he picks a medication, gives you, and who are you to ask, is this the best, is this the appropriate? But it's your right, and you have a right to ask those questions. But we are coming from a certain setting where we are not used to. There's that some fear to question. Again, they also, in fairness to them, sometimes are extremely burdened. I mean, one doctor is seeing X number of patients in a day. So if you come in with too many questions for somebody who is breaking his back, I mean, doing beyond what he's supposed to do humanly. So those challenges come, but even then, I would say that those ones, there are a few instances where things have not gone as expected. But for many patients that we see in our health facilities, in our health settings, there is that recognition that the patient has certain rights, and the practitioners give them.
Over the course of medical practice in Ghana, and you get to interact with the medical professionals, you get to have the feeling that that level of confidentiality is always there. So that is also enshrined in the Charter. But there's the added bit about where the Charter, it is enshrined in there, that the patient is supposed to know whatever the regulations and policies of the medical facility is. And sometimes the patients are not told. They have a difficulty later as regarding treatment. They would need some redress. And the hospital says, well, unfortunately, this is not refundable, or this procedure was undertaken, it can be reverted, or something of the sort. These create misconceptions. How do you think these need to be clarified?
I think the Charter makes room for the right to information. The patient needs to know the condition, the management, let me say, strategy, the options available, possible risks, even the costs involved. It's a basic right that the patient needs to know. I know for a fact that in places at our end, like in Kolebu Teaching Hospital, we have the patient education segments. I have experienced one in the child health department. It is done at least twice a day in our polyclinic, and for most of our clinics, there is active, deliberate education.
But that's Kolebu. It's not something that's replicated across. Yes, and so you can't use Kolebu as a yardstick.
No, I'm not using Kolebu as a yardstick. Kolebu is the model for health delivery in Ghana. We are setting the example.
Well, if the model is not replicated, that becomes a bad example for you to cite.
No, I'm not citing it as an example.
We need to cite the average, shouldn't we?
Yes, it's a model. As we are having this interaction, I'm sure other health facilities are seeing it. It's a model that needs to be replicated, and I'm sure it's. I can bet maybe it's not only Kolebu, where patients are educated before the clinic starts that this hospital that you've come, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. We go beyond that. We have clearly visible complaint desks where we take complaints from patients. We go beyond that. We have an ethics and professionalism committee that investigates complaints that are referred from the medical directorate into the kind and quality of care that was given to any patient who has issues with. So the rights are there, the opportunity to ventilate those rights are there, the systems or processes for addressing redress are also there. And like we are doing now, let's put the information out, let's educate the patient, not just in Kolebu, even private pharmacies or private clinics where you are accessing healthcare, you would want to exercise and demand these rights, because it could be any of us. I always say, if you travel to my hometown in some village and I get to, God forbid, collapse there, I may not be rushed to Kolebu. I may be rushed to some health
the nearest
there.
health facility.
And therefore, those privileges, those rights.
So it will be your interest if all these are observed. Now, very much lately, we've had some difficulties, especially with patients who are having the National Health Insurance Authority cards, and because of perhaps the difficulties service providers have had with receipts from the National Health Insurance Authority, they usually are not giving the best kind of service. How can this be addressed with the charter?
Is it the fundamental rights the charter states is that the patient...
Well, the charter states something, but the point is that it's not replicated at the point of service. That's why we're discussing this at even.
So let's look at the situation this way. The charter states fundamentally that every patient, every person in Ghana is entitled to basic quality care. I mean, that comes dignified for every human being. Now, we are putting it out. If you are not receiving it, flag it. I do not believe that because of delayed reimbursements or, something with the NHIA, any healthcare professional.
But the truth is, that is what is...
advocate. Any healthcare professional would give any less quality service to a patient.
Oh, really?
Yes. I mean...
How do you describe a certain situation, Ernest, where a patient bearing a card is not giving the same type of treatment unlike somebody who is bearing a private insurance provider's card? I mean, somebody who has Universal or Momentum or whatever is given a better treatment than somebody who is having an NHIA card.
Where?
Now, well, I can cite instances. I don't have to mention health facilities.
Yeah.
But the point is, if we're having such situations being replicated across, perhaps not in Kolebu, what toll is it going to have on the treatment that is expected to be given to patients overseas?
No, I think this has to do more with health insurance. You see, basically we provide quality care, but various insurance schemes have various coverages.
We do understand.
Yes. So
but the point is that we're talking about a patient's right to a certain service.
Exactly.
When that patient visits the health facility or the hospital, and once it is enshrined that I'm supposed to be giving care, basic and where care means care. What?
No, basic quality care.
Where care means what? From the point of going to the hospital, OPD, you present your card, and if the reception is not good, then the service doesn't follow through.
No, you see, I don't know. I'm struggling to get the scenario
My
you're
drift.
projecting, but I mean, the card you are presenting gives a certain spectrum, entitles you to a certain spectrum of services. Each card, even if you talk about Momentum or Universal or anything, even within the private scheme, there are various categories and tiers that entitles you to a certain range of services. So let's deal with that first. But I'm saying that, what about when you talk about emergencies? We don't even talk about card. If we get into an emergency situation, it's a human being, it's life at stake. We don't think about card. You give the basic best. That's what I'm saying, that no healthcare professional, unless and any time that you talk about compromised care, it's bad. Something has to be done about it. there has to be a complaint to some segment, and that redress has to be done. Apart from that, there was always a very genuine reason why basic care may be, for any reason, not available or denied. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. Or it shouldn't happen. Let me say it shouldn't happen.
Okay. I'm reading this. I think there's a section on E. And it says, hospital charges mode of payment on all forms of anticipated expenditure shall be explained to the patient prior to treatment. Well, this is done. And it says national health insurance. It's accepted. But at the point of encountering the service, you're told that, well, you wait, this one is served first. Do you agree that there's some level of discrimination when it comes to offering the services at the various medical facilities?
Now, if there is some form of discrimination, it offends the charter, it offends the statute. I'm saying if there is some form of discrimination, it offends the statute. And whoever is discriminated against on the basis of the kind of card you're presented would need to put it out. And, I mean, come out and let that facility or that service provider be dealt with. I'm saying this because there's not supposed to be this, because both services will be paid for. Whether today or next month, it will be paid for. And the charter, again, even before you get to this right to mode of payment and all, the charter says, the fundamental underpinning of the charter says that you don't discriminate against any person, whether because of sex, gender, age.
But people are discriminated against. That's just the thrust of what we're discussing now. Okay, but even moving beyond that, what responsibilities are there then on the patient as well? Because every time we've been talking about the caregiver or whoever the duty bearer is.
The first one is that the patient has a responsibility to disclose fully and comprehensively whatever problems they have. I mean, we say you don't lie to your doctor or you don't lie to your health care provider. You walk into a pharmacy, you have a problem, you want to tell the pharmacist the truth. The patient has a responsibility to request additional information where you are not clear what information you are being given. You have a responsibility to protect the hospital's property or the health facility's property and assets. The patient also has the responsibility to respect other patients, and even the healthcare providers. You owe it to them to respect their persons, because they are also, I mean, as it were, human beings just like you, the patient yourself. They carry the same challenges that you may be carrying. So you owe it a responsibility to protect hospital property and assets. You owe it a responsibility to respect health professionals and to respect other patients. I mean, you know that as well, as bad as it may seem. You get people like you in jackets just walking, seeing other patients, and just going in straight there to see the health professional or the health caregiver. So you have.
Are you citing me as an example because I don't do that?
Because you're in a jacket.
Okay. You're citing me as an example because I'm in a jacket.
But
I don't do that.
Exactly. But you told me about things that happen, which, like you rightly said.
But not that I do it. I hope that's not what you're trying to portray to.
No.
Okay.
You don't do that. You don't do that. So, but that all these are responsibilities on the patient, on the patient as well. And I'm saying I agree with most of what you're saying in terms of now that we have moved from a charter of the Ghana Health Service to an act of parliament. I believe that on the bigger picture, beyond Kolebu, as a nation, the health ministry, the Ghana Health Service would have to move further by providing avenues for redress.
Meaning what? We need to have
you talked about
redress centers,
discrimination. Yes, you talked about discrimination. You talked about,
so there need to be departments or
having questions about
within
the quality
the health
of care.
facility.
Exactly, there need to be systems in place in the health facility to give people the opportunity to say, I didn't like this. I can go to this man and tell him, and something will be done. And I get a feedback showing that something was done, that the system has been improved. Because, like I keep saying, we never know who is going to be the next patient, and therefore we all need to invest in making the charter work, making the charter more effective, complaint desks, review systems, audit systems, and so that what is happening in our theaters, what is happening in pharmacies, private, public, what is happening is put out, is reviewed, and the system is improved for all of us.
If we have to move forward on the subject of the regulation in itself, because now the charter, its tenets have been enshrined in law, what sort of awareness levels there needs to be hyped upped or beefed up so that a lot more people get to know what their rights and responsibilities are?
I should say that when the Health Ministry and the GHS, put out the charter first, there was a lot of publicity. There were a lot of posters in several health facilities across the country, highlighting the key rights. If you use Kolebu Teaching Hospital as a model, we have put together in a small leaflet rights and responsibilities of patients, which we make available when they come to hospital. I'm saying that it's an example worth emulating.
So this needs to be replicated.
Exactly. We have patient education sections where we tell them their rights, their responsibilities now that they've come to hospital. So this needs to be replicated. It has been done before. Now that we have it as a statute, maybe we need to re-highlight it again. We have several clinical meetings and interactions where we talk about patients' rights all across the hospital.
And in instances where these are flouted, the tenets of the charter are flouted, what does it mean? That a board will have to be constituted in various hospitals? And then what's usually the procedure?
Yes.
Supposing I have a complaint to make.
In Kolebu, public relations or public affairs units receive the complaints. And depending on the gravity of them, it's referred to the Director of Medical Affairs or Director of Pharmacy or Director of Nursing, as the case may be. And then they may refer it to the Ethics and Professionalism Committee. That's the structure we have in Kolebu. The EPC would invite the professionals involved, the team involved, interact with them, invite the complainants. If the complainant has, let me say, any witnesses, hear them. And let me say that this is more of an inquest to know what took place and then to take recommend measures to improve the system so that whatever took place would not occur again. It's not a disciplinary proceeding, and if it has to go disciplinary, it goes through another process altogether. But this is more of for improving the system and avoiding the recurrence of whatever complaints the complainants may have.
But all these procedures and the systems, that's Kolebu. Do you know whether this has been replicated in other health facilities we have?
Yes, I know the Ghana Health Service has a medical legal unit, and they also take, I'm not too clear how the complainant, where from the complainant's, position, the channel it goes through before a committee gets to sit on it. But I know they have a system in there, and it's among one of the reasons why they have a medical legal unit that gets to review what took place with the aim of preventing it recurring across all GHS facilities across the country.
Okay, so when moving forward to the subject of having the matter appropriately addressed by the various disciplinary committee or whatever, usually we find that when people have concerns, they don't go to the courts. Why? What time do you resort in going to the court, or when time don't you?
I would advise when all else has failed. Because no, easy.
Because you're a legal practitioner, it's normal for you to say that.
No, not because I'm a legal practitioner. The courts are inundated with lots of stuff already. One. Two, litigation is painfully a very expensive venture in terms of time, in terms of, everything. But the essence of seeking medical redress is not so much to litigate, but is to improve, I believe, is to improve the system. Because sometimes you may even have lost the patient. So we'll tell you that, well, go to Dr. Famanyami because the person is not going to come back again. But the essence is that the next patient may not have to go through that. So let's get the system to respond to this, to revise its way of doing things so that the next person will be protected. So that's why I don't so much recommend litigation. Of course, when all else fails, nothing should oust the courts from getting into a matter to award damages or whatever it is for whoever feels peeved about something that go on. But our best bet is to work towards improving the system for the next patient.
In other jurisdictions, you have some of these cases going to the extent that sometimes some cost or damages are in terms of all that awarded to whoever the complainant is. We don't find that in our system too.
I believe we are headed there. I believe we are headed
so
there.
Now an issue that
it's a matter of time.
Okay.
Now that the rights have statutory clothing and are out, and people are asking the questions, and from what we see and hear in Korle Bu, I dare say we are headed there. But what I'm saying is that the other side of the rights should not be lost on us. The passage of these rights into law places an equal responsibility on the state to provide the necessary logistics, the necessary human resource, the necessary equipment to make sure that, because if I'm going to hold you accountable or going to hold you to strictly to these rights, then it means that I also need to provide you with everything you need to provide the kind of service you are providing. So whilst we are going there, it places a responsibility on us, like you said. It will definitely not be Korle Bu alone or 37 alone. We are looking at a nation. We are looking at from Hamlet to Kita to every corner of this country, and therefore whatever needs to be there to provide the kind of health service that we can hold a doctor or a pharmacist or a nurse responsible, the state has to make sure that it has provided it. Because sometimes if you want to push the health practitioner to the wall and it tells you that, look, this is a one-man station, one doctor, one pharmacist, two nurses manning a district, when do they go on leave? How do they go on leave? If the doctor goes on leave, who mans the place? If the pharmacist goes on leave, who mans the place? So are we going to have X number in every facility across the nation so that we can hold them responsible? If one nurse is manning 3 wards, how do you go to hold them responsible in terms of patients' rights? So those are, logistical challenges germane to our economic situation that the state has to go beyond the Patients Act on paper to provide so that you can hold.
And this covers medical facilities who operate in the private sector as well?
It covers all persons living in Ghana who get to interact with patients and clients. So the private is also involved.
Thank you very much. Ernest Abuaje is a medical pharmacist.
A pharmacist.
Yeah. He's a pharmacist and a legal practitioner as well. He is with the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital and updating us on what rights and responsibilities there are for both medical professionals and patients as far as the Patients Charter is concerned. That now has now been grounded in law, and so it has an act now. If you have a difficulty, please make sure you report to the appropriate quarters. But you, the patient, also, you have a certain responsibility as well. Thanks for joining us this morning. We hope to have you sometime back in the studio again to help us with discussions a lot more. Well, so that'll be it for our discussions on the Patients Charter on my banner. Next, we bring to you the latest news we have on the hour.